Welcome to the very first episode of the Strongest Man in the Room podcast. On this podcast, we will be talking about motivation, inspiration, traumas, defeating our old self to become a better, more influenced self. I will be interviewing individuals that I believe represent what the strongest man in the room is. And I'll just be giving more detailed information, more detailed game, jewels. I've had a lot of people over the last couple months always hit me up and ask me if I am willing to start a podcast. And then I tell them like, yo, years ago I had a Abundant Thinkers podcast. And I was doing that and actually engineering the show at the time. And so when it was, kind of approached to me to do it again, I had grown so much. A lot of things have happened in my life that I could actually share, talk about, be vulnerable with. So sometimes in my podcast, there will be very, 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 very personal or vulnerable situations that I will talk about and let people in on. So this is the very first episode of The Strongest Man in the Room. So I'm not going to be too heavy today, not going to make it too wild. I'm live on Instagram. This wonderful podcast, before we get going, is sponsored and powered by KUAW.org. This is internet radio. KUAW.org is what powers the Strongest Man in the Room podcast. You can go on KUAW on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and tune in. So we on a wide range of platforms. And so we're going to be growing this podcast. We're going to be really taking this to another level and making some things happen. So today I kind of want to introduce you guys to who I am. I am Ryan S. Harvey. I am 37. I am a single father, inspirational individual. Some like to call me a god. They tell me that I need to believe that I am a god, not in the sense of the creator of the capital G, but the creator within myself of being able to create universes within the world that I live in. So I'm a lowercase g. So like I said, I will be interviewing people, but Ryan S. Harvey, 37, single father, speaker, teacher, motivator, mentor, consultant to some, business owner, entrepreneur, author, voiceover actor. I got a lot of hats that I wear. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to build or do this podcast is to give younger individuals an opportunity to learn. I've had so many young kids that are coming up that have asked me, hey, yo, I want to start a podcast. How do I get into doing podcasts? What do I got to do to go about having a podcast? And so every month, I will make sure to have kids coming in every time to do and be a part of the podcast, whether it's working with my man behind the screen or if it's engineering the show or sitting in on the show or being a part of the show, but I'm going to make sure that the younger generation is a part of my show. So today, I definitely kind of just want to share some thoughts, share some things that have been going on in my life personally. Big shout out, the Kansas City People's Choice Awards was over the weekend, I believe. If it wasn't over the weekend, it was last week, but I'm pretty sure it was over the weekend. Shout out to my bro Terrell Ray. We're gonna be having him on the show here very, 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 very soon. It was such an amazing being there, being at the event, seeing everybody dressed up. The food was fire. I can't remember all the caterers that was at the event, but it was absolutely like the food was fire. I had some rice with some, I think it was like some gumbo or something. I don't want to mispronounce that. I'm going to have to holler at Ray and ask him all the vendors so I can properly name all of the vendors that was at the spot, because they had food, they had clothes, they had candles, they had your municipal things if you into that. But it was a really, 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 really dope dope event, and to bring attention and highlight individuals that have been on the grind as far as going after the things that they want, to represent themselves as, and just getting the recognition in a city where we like to believe that recognition, support, and actual love and flowers is very hard to come by. So to be able to build an event like this where over 1,000 people came dressed in their best, almost looked like church in that joint. And all the people that was in there and how good everybody was looking. But the ciphers was dope. The awards, the presenters were looking amazing. The speeches were dope. The poets, they had a poet section of the award show where it was 4 poets. I wish, man, no disrespect at all. I wish I knew who the 4 poets were right now, but they killed they section of the award show. That was one of the things that really stuck out to me. And Mac Sauce, shout out to Pops Myro, but Mac Sauce killed it in her session as well. But it was just such a dope environment to be able to see and network with so many people, having people that I didn't even knew who I was, that took time to walk up and just give some flowers real quick and say how much they are inspired by me and my little brother. And so shout out to my little brother, by the way, Warren Jamal Harvey, Warren Styles. Let me get it right. Styles Harvey. He's had paintings in the Bel Air TV show. He has a man, excuse me if I forget the word. He's an artist at a co-working space. It is on 2000 and Vine. Shout out to Tim and his lovely wife. The workspace is open every day, but they have a community day every first Friday, I believe. First Friday of every month. He has dope art for sale. I would advise you to go out, check it out, and look at it. And so now let's get into the show. Now that I done got that out the way, then gave my flowers, then talked about some people doing some dope things in the city, kind of want to tell you what I've been up to. I did some stuff out in California for a while, built some courses, and I was the face of a global scam, believe it or not. The reason why I call this the strongest man in the room is because of how much and how many things I've had to endure these last few years. Whether it was being the face of a global scam where the FBI actually had my account for a while. I was looked at all over the world as an inspiration for a while. And then when the company and the company owners decided to do some other things with the business, I was looked at as a scammer as well. So I went through that. I was extremely depressed. And what came from that is a book. And so in this book, I created this book called Creating Your World, where I, gave some game that I was able to give from my wonderful, dope, super talented mentor, Dr. Lawrence McNair, where he challenged me to decide to create my world instead of having somebody else create it for me. And so I just went through the challenges of what it meant to create your own world. What that actually meant, because of course when I'm thinking about creating your own world, I'm thinking about I want it to be full of the dopest things that you can possibly have, the dopest car, the dopest traveling, the dopest friends, and of course I want those things and I desire those things, but before you can actually get to a position of having those things is, how do you treat it? How do you treat the life that you have right now? How do you show respect to the life that you have right now? I remember when I drove a Chevy Impala, like it was, my daughter liked to call it Stitch because it was blue. It's kind of beat up a little bit, and I would still keep it clean, right? Like I would always find myself at the car wash or making sure that even after it rained, like I would always wash my car. And so my daughter would be like, yo, why are you always washing this car when it looked like this? Like it's a whole front of the car missing. You had somebody hit the car and mess it up and all this kind of stuff. So why do you treat this car like this? And I had to break it down to her and let her know, like, yo, if you aspire to have anything nice, if you ever aspire to do anything nice, do anything that's dope or wonderful at all, it all depends on and predicated on how you treat what you have right now. And so, of course, I want a nicer car. I want a nicer crib. But if I'm not putting myself in a position of treating the things that I have, the things that I've acquired better, then what am I actually saying to God? What am I actually saying to the universe about the things that I say that I seek? Shout out. Yo, shout out to my favorite rapper. Shout out to my favorite rapper. May you rest in peace. My boy Nipsey Hussle, my dog Nipsey Hussle got his star on the Walk of Fame yesterday in LA. They made August 15th Nipsey Hussle Day. So that's really dope for a man like myself to see somebody come from the block and to get to a position where they're amongst the greats and the people that a lot of people idolize, and so to see him have the work that he put in, the game that he put in. I mean, if he was still alive, I would have loved to be able to have him sit down on the Strongest Man in the Room podcast, to be able to chop it up about things that he's endured, things that he's overcome, be able to give out game. And like, honestly, he's one of my biggest inspirations. His music is one of the things that has helped transform my life. When I'm in dark places, when I'm in bad times, of course, I pray to God. But I know that music is a crazy, crazy, crazy movable thing. And so I always want to make sure that I show love to Nip, because he's somebody that I am extremely, extremely inspired by. So I want to make sure that I do everything in my power to make sure that I make sure to let it be known how much he has truly, truly, truly inspired me, from the music, the interviews. I don't know, man. If you just sit back, matter of fact, I'm going to dedicate this first episode to my man Nip. I'm going to dedicate this first episode to my dog Nip, cuz man, he really inspired me to look at myself in a more constructive way. And I was raised in church, sat down, listened to a pastor. I did all that, was really deep in church, really a lot of times really felt it. And I never got to see something or a person that made me see myself in him, but want to be better because of him. And so this first episode of the Strongest Man in the Room podcast, I'm dedicating to Nip Huss, Ermias Ascadon. And so, I can sit back and think about all the music. The first time I got put on the Nip, the things that I got to hear, it was different. Being in a position where I got to actually hear somebody motivate you that's coming from the same place that we live. It was inspiring. Every time that there were album that came out, I was making sure to stay tapped into it. Always wanting to make sure I stay tapped into it. So for those that didn't get the message before, because I was live on Instagram and I just became live on Facebook, this is the Strongest Man in the Room podcast. We will be talking about traumas, inspirations, motivations. We will also be talking about how to overcome self-doubt. I'll be interviewing individuals that I believe, men and women, that I believe that are very amazing examples of what the strongest men in the room look like. And so I'm just going to be making sure that I do my part in making sure I inspire my city, regardless of where I am and what I'm doing. I want to make sure that I inspire those. So for those that are watching, if you have some young life, some kids, some children that want to what up, Devin? It's about time. For those that have kids that want to have their kids know about podcasting, what it means to be have a podcast, what it means to be on the back end of the podcast. I will make sure to have every episode. I will make sure to have a couple kids just reach out to me. Have your parents reach out to me if the parents are on listening to the podcast. If you have some kids that are curious about podcasts, want to learn more about engineering a podcast, I will be making sure to invite those young people in as well. This isn't just only about the adults and talking about the things that inspire us, but making sure we include and connect and make a bridge for the young individuals to know that we listen and hear, and not only do that, but encourage them to find their light, to find their purpose, and become their greatest self. So the Strongest Men in the Room podcast is about not only the young life, but the people that are in those positions of following their dream, linking with those kids to actually see, touch, and hear that game in a real way. So if you are a parent that has kids, or you're a parent that knows exactly, London is a number one on the list. But if you're a kid or a parent that has kids, or a parent that knows some parents that has kids, that their kids are interested in podcasting, I will make sure to have them on, invite them down to the radio show, to be able to sit across from a person that I believe is an example of the strongest man in the room. And they will get an opportunity to not only see how a podcast works, but to be a part of the podcast. All right. So we are centered around moving better, thinking better, and doing better. So I had a podcast, I want to say like 4 years ago. It was called Abundant Thinkers. And, and so much life has happened since then. And so I am going to be giving as much game as I possibly can, and bringing in people that also have game and jewels to give the community just from a different aspect. There are so many people that I have met in my life that I know that I have access to, that I'm going to bring on the show, that I'm going to be sharing with, and asking those questions, digging deep into critical thinking, asking those questions to pull out those things that those people that are watching need to know. So I just been, doing my videos, building my speaking regimen. I've been working at this place called Bridge Leadership Academy, where we have kids come in, where we have built a curriculum. Me and the wonderful Waukesha Briggs. We have built a curriculum that has kids being in a position where we challenge them to think about themselves in a more constructive way, a more positive way, reintroducing them to how much power they truly have, how much God truly desires to see them as their greatest self, understanding that life absolutely hits us all. But if we learn to have the right trainers, put ourselves in the right gym, learn how to throw the right punches, we can kind of fight with life to be able to hopefully win that belt to say we a champion. So the Strongest Man in the Room podcast is just going to be about that. Everything that is surrounded about overcoming everything that we go through. And so I think for me, just personally, I think trauma for me, these last couple months, I think trauma has been one of the biggest things for me. And I know that we all go through this. Nobody is above trauma. Nobody's above it. I think in the situation that I'm in, and how to handle this trauma that I've been through these last few months, and making sure that I don't let it overwhelm me, that I don't let it deter me, that I don't let it distract me, but I let it propel me to not only finding parts of myself that I didn't realize, but loving on parts of myself that I didn't realize as well. Trauma is a real thing. And a lot of times trauma is the thing that keeps us from actually going after the things that we truly desire. If you really think about it, a lot of the things that stops us is the things that we've experienced in our childlike adolescence. When we didn't know too much, and we bumped our heads, or we had parents that maybe didn't know everything or didn't know the right things to do. So, we had to deal with the things that we had to deal with. And so I think for me, one of the biggest things that got me to a point to be able to proclaim that I am the strongest man in the room is that I like to own my traumas. I really, 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 really like to own my shit. All right. And so whether it's my father dying, whether it's the family issues that I had, whether it's me trying to find myself and making the mistakes of getting kicked out of school, whether it's the traumas that I faced in being in military school, whether it's the traumas that I faced in going to jail. Listen, I don't know how many times I've been to jail, honestly, just being absolutely truthful. And to realize that is a trauma within itself, of being confined to a space, to a room, not being able to come and go as you please, is a trauma. Trauma with being a single father, trauma of having to overcome self-doubt or not believing in myself for years, or get my child out of foster care. That was an extreme trauma for me. Or believing in people, and then they don't They don't turn out to be what you think they are. I've dealt with a lot of trauma, whether it's losing friends in my face, right in front of my eyes, and seeing a friend of mine take his last breath. Like, trauma is all over the place. And I believe that God put me in the position, because I've dealt with my traumas, to further deal with trauma, to help other people begin to deal with their own. It's not sweet. It's not easy. It's actually some of the scariest things I've ever had to do in my life, because I've had to face parts of myself that I chose to neglect. You know, trauma is like one of those things that once it happens to you, we instantly begin to build a defense mechanism. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've gotten extremely hurt, you know what I mean? And it really, 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 really messed you up. Whether it's a family member passing, maybe you experience like a hurt from a relationship that is hard to get over. Regardless of what it is, nobody can tell you what was traumatic for you. Everybody has their different levels or different situations that might be traumatic, right? And so for me, everybody talks about being motivational, being inspirational. Hell, even me, I talk about, going after things, being your best, doing the best you can, overcoming self-doubt. I talk about that stuff all the time. But what's so interesting is that that's not the thing that has truly helped me. Being a person that says, I want to be a motivational person. I want to inspire people to be their best self. And like, it sounds sweet and it sounds cool, but in all actuality, to be totally honest, in all actuality, dealing with my traumas helped me see who I was supposed to be. Dealing with the things that hurt me helped me see who I was supposed to be. We all be looking for, man, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Like, where am I supposed to go? It's like, one of the things that has helped me tremendously is like dealing with my hurt. Like I can remember, like, as a kid, how mad I was on a regular basis. Like, nobody could say anything to me. Like, you say the smallest thing where I felt like you didn't understand me, or you felt like you were attacking me. Like, man, I would go out of my way to defend my trauma. Like, I would go out of my way to defend my trauma. Like, even if I had like men that would be like, yo, like, that's not too sweet. Like, that ain't the way you should move. I would still defend the person that I became because of my trauma, right? For instance, like, my father dying at a young age was traumatic, extremely traumatic for me. And I can remember, I don't remember hearing my dad. Like, I don't remember my dad's voice. I don't remember how he walks. I don't remember his favorite food. I don't know how he enters a room. I don't remember how his energy feels. There isn't anything that I remember of my father. But the only things that I do remember is me remembering how he died. Remembering him on his deathbed. Like, even as a kid, like, even thinking about that and remembering that. I'm 37 and I can still remember. I had a conversation with my mom one time about it, and telling her I could remember her getting the phone call about him dying. Like, I could totally, like, I remember the phone ringing. I remember the phone ringing and being in the position where hearing my mom react to getting the news. And even at 4 or 5, how that was extremely, extremely impactful to my life. And then the funeral. Like, I remember the funeral. I remember seeing my older brothers and sisters that I haven't seen in years at that time. I remember seeing them. And I remember like sitting in the front row with the family. And I remember being asked if I wanted to see my dad in the casket. Right. Like I can remember being asked if I want to walk up and see my dad. And I said no. And I can remember like sitting there, not knowing what to think, not knowing what to feel, not knowing what to say. And, it's just really, really, really difficult sometimes to find a way to deal with that. And so one of the questions that I just received is, Ryan, are you doing any, I can't see the word right there. Can you move it over a little bit? No, there you go. Ryan, during any of your traumas, did you seek professional help? I'm asking because help is so taboo in our community. All right, so that's an amazing question, and I'm glad that you asked that question. I appreciate your courage in asking that question. Now, I will be totally honest with you. When I was younger, I didn't seek help. I didn't know what that looked like. And I can't say that in my mindset that I had then, I can't say that I would have been in the position to actually ask or even know how to communicate it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know how to communicate what kind of help I needed. I didn't know what I was searching for. I didn't truly know what I was seeking. So to even ask for that at that age was probably really difficult for me to do. But in my adult years, I have to be honest again. Absolutely. I get as much help as necessary. Even when, not to get too personal, my daughter is going through a very traumatic situation as we speak. And because I understand how much professional help has helped me with my mentor is an actual doctor, and he has his PhD in psychology. So he has helped me tremendously deal with a lot of my traumas, and it was not easy. There was times when I cried, when I cussed, when I was mad, when I reacted toward him, like when I gave him the energy of the defense, of the irritation, of the child, the boy in me that felt stranded, that felt deserted, that felt left. I reacted in those ways, and it wasn't until I got so mad. I'm gonna be honest. Like working with Dr. McNair, I love him to death. He pushed me to a super, 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 super deep place where I had to cry deeply. Now I know it's like in our culture, in our community, we say how much men aren't supposed to cry, and we're supposed to be able to handle, like, yo, I got emotions, I got feelings, I'm sensitive about some things. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna act like if a movie come on and that joint ain't good enough and they ain't acting to the level that they supposed to, where I ain't gonna feel that joint. I'm not too cool for school. So he really pushed me to feel. I can remember, again, attaching myself to that traumatic event of my father dying. I sat in that seat, and it was like I taught myself in that moment to not feel nothing. Like I don't know how I did it. I don't know why I did it. I don't know how my mind confirmed that that's what I should do. But when I did it and I sat there and I didn't go up there, and I internalized my feelings and didn't talk about them, I carried them for, 30 years? I let situations overcome me. I made his death the excuse. Man, I would act out and make him the reason. Like I would have a chip on my shoulder and make him the reason. And then if I felt like my family didn't treat me too sweet, then I made that the reason. Then I defended those things. Like, yo, like that trauma was a thing that actually helped me, like really facing that was a thing that really helped me become who a lot of people feel is an inspiration. And it's scary because, you know, while some people might not have the same gifts as others, while some people can look at a LeBron James or Steph Curry or Janet Jackson or Beyonce or Lil Baby or anybody like that, right? We hold them to such a high regard, but we are all on the same plane when it comes to trauma. And we all choose to deal with it in different ways. And so for me, I think one of the lanes that I've become or that I've realized that is my lane is helping people face their traumas, face the things that they have put themselves in a position to not deal with, but then reconstruct themselves to be able to defend. Like, yo, I was so sweet at defending my trauma that I became somebody totally different. And because I committed to that difference so much in my mind for so long, I thought that was who I was. Think about how habitually toxic that is to be in a situation where you will repeatedly say to yourself the same things that put you deeper and deeper into a hole, to where then you will defend it and say, this is who I am. This is me. Take it or leave it. And it's not. Like most of us, right? Like, if I'm not mistaken, I watched a documentary on Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy and all those individuals, and you would be surprised how much trauma has happened in their life that they haven't dealt with, that transmutes itself in the wildest of ways. And so if we think about the people that do the things that have become wide news, the church killings or whatever it is, we got so many people that are dealing with unchecked traumas. And instead of being in a position where we are fearless enough to actually face the things that stop us from becoming, like, it's not your way of thinking that's stopping you. It's your way of thinking. It's not your way of thinking that's stopping you from becoming. Right? We got everybody that wants to find their purpose. Like, please, God, help me find my purpose. I don't feel like I'm worthy because I don't feel like I have a purpose. I believe that you have a purpose. Your purpose is in finding you in your trauma, right? It's like I found so many parts of myself that I never knew existed when I dealt with parts of myself that I chose to neglect. That hurt from my father dying, oh my God. I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to cry about that, right? I wanted to be strong. Like, I didn't want to show I was affected by it because I ain't the only one that ain't got no daddy, right? Like, I ain't the only one that didn't grow up without my dad, right? So you want to be in a position to be like, yo, I can't be too sensitive about it. Right? I can't be like, think about how our community works. We can't be too sensitive about the things that truly affect us, because then it shows that we are affected by something. But we all are. So to be in a position to act like you're not affected by things is actually something that shows that you're not willing to deal with trauma. Because if you actually are willing to deal with trauma, you understand that, hey, this is gonna hurt. It ain't going to feel good. And I'm going to have to go deep within myself to understand why it don't feel good. And I have to find myself through this. Like think about it for a second. My father wasn't here. right? Like my father wasn't around. He didn't have an opportunity to make an imprint on my life. And because of that, I wanted to, and the lack of having that access, that put me in a position to want to find out what a man looks like. Like, how does he move? How does he think? What does he feel? What does he represent? Like I didn't understand a lot about myself, until I dealt with what her, like, when I started to face like my father not being around, I started to understand that me as his son, like what's the quote? The sins of the father fall on the son, right? And so a lot of what I experienced, and that I didn't experience because I didn't want to deal with the trauma of him not being here. I was facing things when I finally faced it, when I finally wanted to deal with it, when I finally wanted to deal with a part of my trauma. I realized that I was facing things in my life that my father had an opportunity to, and he chose not to. I'm going to say this again. When I finally started to face the trauma of my father's death, I realized that I was in the position of facing some things and dealing with some things within myself. Everybody has their own family little habits, cues, all that thing. You got some habits that you got from your dad and your mom, right? And so there's some things that are passed down habitually, right? And so I was in a position that I was facing self-doubt. My father, after hearing stories about my dad wasn't the biggest in believing in himself. He doubted himself tremendously. So I find myself after dealing with the trauma of the death of my father, I find myself finding my own self-confidence. It's crazy how this works, but I find myself having to be introduced to my own self-worth and my own self-power. Now, if I didn't want to deal with the trauma of my father, then I would be in a position of still continuing to blame him. But I've gone deep within myself to challenge, not even challenge, but to even ask my mom critical questions. Even about the experience of my father or the things that I've actually experienced about becoming a man that I didn't get to see. Asking, how did he move? How did he get to do things? How did he deal with things? How did he move in a certain way when obstacles came? Like, and it's something completely different. But I guarantee you, we all have traumas that have gone unchecked. We all have traumas. And I'm not the person that's like the trauma specialist, because even in where I'm at currently and dealing with the traumas that I have with my child, I am getting schooled by her therapist. Her therapist is putting me on to knowledge about trauma and how wide-ranging trauma can be for all of us. And so what trauma is like a shock to the system, to your whole fabric of being. And it's like the trauma changes you instantly. You know how when you want to change your life, and you're like, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna do this, right? And we got to be really super patient with ourselves, because our habits don't allow us to move as quickly as we desire. Right? Like the habits don't allow us to move like quickly into a shift of something. But your trauma, something that you realize is a trauma for you, it instantly moves you. It instantly moves and changes you. My beautiful mother is on my Facebook, and she says that it changes your DNA. You are absolutely correct. It changes you instantly. A traumatic experience, it changes you instantly. And so in a large way, we allow our traumas to shift us and move us into positions that make us feel sad, depressed, anxious, fearing the possibilities, or fearing the habit of it happen again. So before I continue, one more time, I would like to tell you that this amazing episode is powered by KUAW.org, the internet radio show of the strongest man in the room. And we are going to be dealing with our traumas on this show. The things that stop you from becoming your best self. Now we can the motivation, the overcoming things, the grit, the grind, all that stuff, that comes after. The loving on yourself, that comes first. The dealing with your traumas, that comes first. The only way we can clear up some room to actually see the possibilities is if we start to remove some of the traumas. Now, I'm not saying the trauma won't be there, the situation, won't be there for the rest of your life. It absolutely will be. But being able to deal with your trauma is putting yourself in a position to where it doesn't have so much hold over how you look at life, how you see life, how you take action and enjoy life. And so in dealing with one of my very first traumas of my father dying, I think that was one of the first things I got introduced to as far as a traumatic event. Was my father dying, and me going into the depths of my spirit and looking at how that affected me, what that caused me to do, how that caused me to think. Not having my father around and access to that knowledge, I didn't know it was okay to be soft. I relied on what they say in church, what God tell you, don't rely on your own understanding. I did that. And so after that traumatic event, I didn't have that. And I can't say I would have listened to it because oh my God, this could get so deep, because a lot of times when we do experience a traumatic event, the last thing we trying to do is tell anybody. My daughter experienced an extremely traumatic event, and the last thing she did was talk to me about it. And I'm like, I eat, live, breathe, and die protection of her. And she still didn't tell me. So just imagine how difficult things can be for anybody that is feeling a traumatic event, that they just don't know how to begin to talk about that, because it is a very vulnerable place to be able to describe something you don't know how to describe. It is a very vulnerable place to have to describe feelings you don't know how to describe. You don't know what they're doing to you. You don't know how they're affecting you. And so, it really took me some time and some professional help to be in the position where I actually seen what not dealing with my traumas was actually doing to me, what it was actually causing me to look into, whether it be sex. Not dealing with your traumas can make you overly sexual. Not to say that you can't be a sexual person, but you will use the gratification of sex as a means to pacify not dealing with your traumas. And so I've been there too, of really using sex or having orgasm, or men don't have orgasm. That's women that have orgasm, but climaxing, right? Using that as a means of feeling good, because I didn't want to deal with my traumas in order to feel good. Oh my God. And so I did that for a long time. I dedicated I dedicated so much of my life to like, I built the habit of like not dealing with myself. Like I built the habit of not dealing with myself. So I would lie. I would lie to people, right? Only because, I didn't want to deal with my trauma. I didn't want to deal with why I was feeling the way I did. So I choose to lie to people, right? And so then if you choose to keep lying, then it becomes habitual. Then you can't stop yourself from lying. Hey, lying, like people lying now becomes so sweet that, the quote where they say, one of the tricky things about lying is that you got to remember your lie. It's so crazy now that the liars remember they lie now. Like think about how difficult it will be to remove yourself from your trauma, because you will be so committed to it that you will remember the lie you tell to keep yourself trapped and being able to free yourself. Not dealing with your traumas will have you being somebody that you should never be. Like, I was in a position of like trying to be this person, trying to look at that person. He's moving a way that he look a little bit more confident than me. So let me try that. Not dealing with your traumas leaves you open to trying anything. Adults that have kids that have dealt with traumas, not putting them in a position to learn right now. Like we can break the curse of like, people say, in our community, we don't talk about traumas. We don't deal with our stuff. You want to know how to dismantle that? Start taking your kids to see a therapist. Show them early how important it is to talk to somebody. My mentor likes to call it like he tell me, hey Ryan, it's okay to vent. Bro, it's okay to vent. Venting is like it's like opening a window to a smoky room. How can we actually see what we need to clean up, what we need to fix, what we need to let go of if we don't let some of this smoke out of this room? We have to be in a position where we let some of this smoke out. And our traumas is the smoke. The traumas is the smoke. And if we let it get too smoky in there, we could start to choke. We keep sitting on our trauma, we could mess around and die. And so we got to be in a position where we don't fear to face the things that have hurt us. We have to be in a position where we are fearless enough, to face the things that have put us in a position to not quite be ourselves. Hey, I remember as a kid, man, I would wake up and feel good for no reason. Like nothing amazing was going on. Nothing different was going on in my life. But I felt good. Like I ain't even know why. And so it's crazy how much when I become an adult, how much I don't have that feeling anymore. And I wonder if it's because I've chosen not to love myself enough to deal with the things that have hurt me, to put me in a place to always feel sad, depressed, not good enough, not worthy enough. Oh man, we will all like beat ourselves down doing that. We will all beat ourselves down like, God is an interesting God because he loves us, right? He loves us like so much, but he understands, universe, whatever you want to call it, understands that trauma is necessary in order for growth. Trauma is necessary in order for growth. Like, in my understanding now, I look at traumatic events as an opportunity for exponential growth. Before, I looked at a trauma as like, come on, God, why me? Like, bro, I'm trying to go like do this stuff, man. Like, why are you putting all this stuff on me, man? Like, why? Like, come on, man. I don't even want to say the quote. I ain't even gonna give power to the quote. But the quote is, I'm not gonna say it, the full quote, but they say, if it ain't one thing, right, to continue to attract, to continue to like, yo, I want to deal with myself, and I want to deal with the things that hurt me to put me in a position to see what I'm truly supposed to see. Like after actually dealing with the hurt from my father, I seen myself in a way that I had never seen myself before. After dealing with the hurt or the trauma from my perception of how my family treated me, right? Like I seen myself in a different way, to begin to treat my family a different way, to where now my relationship with my brother, my grandmothers, my mom, man, is like some of the most beautiful relationships that I value in my life. The closest relationships. Like, yo, when I was like living in my trauma, my relationship with my brother, my relationship with my mom, the relationship with my grandmothers was all lacking. It was all lacking. Like, oh my God, it was such a separation from myself and my family, because I didn't want to deal with myself. I didn't want to deal with what hurt me. I didn't want to deal with the things that have caused me to have a shock in my system. I didn't want to deal with that. But once I started to like really deal with my traumas, once I really started to deal with my traumas, it like, oh my God, I can't even put it in the right terminology to where it makes sense. But in my 37 years of living, God is my witness. My mother and my brother are my witness. And actually, this is how I know that I'm dealing with my traumas. My relationship with my brother, my family, totally, these last few years has grown exponentially. Has grown exponentially. Me and my mom have had conversations that I can't say we would have had 10 years ago. Right? Like dealing with your traumas absolutely 1000% helps you thrive. And if you don't deal with your trauma, it will keep you stuck in the mud. Right? Like I like to say, I'm down to get dirty. I'm down to get dirty, but I don't want to get messy. I'm down to get dirty, but I do not want to get messy. So if you thinking about, yo, I got some things that I need to deal with within myself, hey, it's time to get dirty. You getting messy by not dealing with it. I'm telling you, my life was a mess because I didn't want to deal with my traumas. My relationships were a mess because I didn't want to deal with my traumas. Right? Have you ever seen a car stuck in the mud? Get messy, don't it? It's a mess, ain't it? Like, yo, think about a car getting stuck in the mud and a car getting stuck in dirt. Oh, my God. Car stuck in dirt, it ain't doing nothing. But if you, come on now, T, you hear me? So if you face it, if you face it, right, you got to get dirty. You got to get dirty. If you face it, you got to get dirty. But if you want to sit in it, I promise you that rain is going to rain on you constantly, and it's going to turn into mud. And every time you get that feeling of wanting to do something, wanting to get out, wanting to do better, them wheels is going to turn in that mud and kick up dirt, kick up mud and mess up everything. Everything's going to be a mess. Everything that you touch, everything that you're involved in is going to be a mess. Because you're choosing to sit in your mess. You are choosing to sit in your mess. And you going to make a big enough hole till you read in my mind. Because you know where I was going. You're going to make a big enough hole to where you drown in your mud. You're going to dig yourself a big enough hole. It's like that. It's like the old quote where they say the guy that's sitting in the hole that's waiting on God. Right? And God bring a guy with a ladder. Nope. No. Waiting on God. Hey, but I got a ladder, champ. No, I'm waiting on God, but I got a ladder, champ. But I told you I'm waiting on God. All right, cool. Another guy come, right? God is so interesting. He not going to give you a ladder for the second time. Nah, The other guy going to come with a rope, right? Right? The work is going to be, oh, man, you didn't want to do it the way that I was trying to give it to you, where all you had to do was believe enough and take the steps. No, since you didn't want to do it that way, the next guy I'm going to send to you, he gonna come with a rope, right? Now the rope, you're going to have to pull yourself up, you're going to have some calluses on your hands by the time you get out that joint, right? You're going to have to learn something about how to wrap your legs around your ankles around the rope to really pull yourself up, right? And when you get out of that thing, you might be exhausted. Where when the first guy, when he gave you the ladder, you could have got out of that thing, knew that God came, like, yo, all you had to do was believe. God, thank you. All I need to do is get out the ladder. Thank you, God. That instantly builds the connection. But we want to put ourselves in a position where so much work has to be done. Like, I need to feel it through my hands, God, in order for me to know that it's real. Like, no, I was real with the ladder. You just didn't want to deal with it. You didn't want to deal with the fact that you was in the hole, right? So if we are in a position to deal with our traumas, if we are in a position to deal with our traumas, we will be in a position to see ourselves and be better. Because the strongest man in the room is only the strongest within you. My name is Ryan S. Harvey. This is the Strongest Man in the Room podcast, and I will see you next month for the next episode.